Go ahead.
Hey there, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's Zak Romanoff from OMNI Food Sales, your leading brand advocate and builder in the Metro New York area. When we have opportunities to come across different food entrepreneurs, sometimes we come across stories that are worth sharing. And I met Leeann here. We just met this morning.
We did.
And we just started talking. I said, time out, let's pause and let's share this conversation because I feel it's inspiring and worth sharing with everyone else out there. So, Leeann, who are you and what is your product?
So I'm Leeann, and my brand name is BuckWHAT Foods. It's a line of snacks made with buckwheat. I was born in Kiev, Ukraine, where I always ate buckwheat. I still continue to eat it every day. My mom still makes it for me. And it's an incredibly nutritious and sustainable food item. It's also naturally gluten-free, so that's why the company's called BuckWHAT, because there's no wheat in buckwheat. And so I wanted to create a line of foods using this incredible ingredient. And the first relaunched item is BuckWHAT Noshes, which is just your convenient grab-and-go snack made with buckwheat, a few pantry ingredients, and absolutely no added sugar.
Okay, so at what point did you realize that this is what you wanted to put all your energy and resources into to build?
So after I had graduated college, Michigan, go blue, I decided I was pursuing a career in potentially law, and I ended up just working in my family business, which is logistics. And then I think like 8 years later, to do the math, I met my husband, and he saw how passionate I was about food because I found different ways to do anything that involved food, whether it was doing dinner parties or having friends over for tastings or just creating things. I once made my nephew a 6-layer red velvet cake because he was 6 months old. So like people don't usually just do really weird things like that. And also had a blog about oysters. So he's like, "You're so passionate. You really need to pursue this passion." So I went to culinary school, the ICC in Manhattan, and only to realize that I did not want to be a chef, but that I really wanted to do something with my passion for health as well as my love of buckwheat. And so I was experimenting in my kitchen in New York City, and I came up with a line of products using buckwheat, all with a mission to be healthy without adding sugar to them. So I had a few flavors at the time of the noshes. I had a granola and a bar. And so I decided to test it out on the market. I was selling it at farmers markets at first and really had a big following. People came back on the weekends. People emailed me to place orders. I didn't even have a website. And then I decided to take it into retail. And so I found an incubator kitchen in 2016 and started producing there for stores. I was getting into smaller stores and then eventually in bigger stores like Whole Foods, really in the New York City metro area. And then in 2018, this past April, I relaunched with just the noshes in new packaging. But I also happened to have 2 kids in the process, so things were like constantly a roller coaster of stop and goes.
Wow. So on social media, or there's these memes that are out there that say, people see the mountaintop and they see success, but they don't see all the ups and downs and the turns and the circles and the knots in between. And it sounds like this road was not just a straight road.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, it's definitely a journey, but it's a good one. I definitely had some downs. I had ups. When you have a passion for something, like getting into a Whole Foods, that was so cool. That was so exciting. But then you have times when like someone calls you and you're like, the packaging ripped, or this happened, or that happened, or if you've ordered too much of one item, not enough of an ingredient. I mean, I've had times when I've had orders and like the ingredients just didn't come in. You think it's the end of the world at the moment, but it's not. It's okay. People could go a couple of days without eating the product. But yeah, it's definitely been a learning experience.
It sounds like the common denominator through everything is your passion. You have an undying, a real true passion for this, and it sounds to me like that's what gave you the strength to push through all the barriers, to go over all the speed bumps in putting together a brand like this. I mean, you and I both know what it takes because we're in the industry, what it takes to put this together. But for all the people sitting at home on a couch that have a dream of creating their own product, just give an idea or throw a few examples out of what it takes to put this together.
So I think the one, I'm no one to give advice, but if I had to give one piece of advice, I would say that you need to go into this knowing that you're going to make mistakes. It's just going to happen. You're going to be like, why did I do that? I wish I didn't do that. But you really can't say, I wish I didn't do that, because it wouldn't take you to the next place where everything is a learning experience. So when I first started this, I was selling them in these little circular shapes out of jars. And then I was like, okay, let me put it into a stand-up pouch. But I didn't know anything about shelf life or, things like that come into account when you're moving from something that's ready to eat to something that's going to be packaging. And you learn. You just learn. You reach out to people. You shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to ever ask a question, no matter how stupid it might seem, because if you don't know the answer, what's the point? The whole thing is to take your company to the next level. So you have to use your resources. So you meet people along the way. You're like, well, how did you get your packaging? Or how did you do this? Like, knowing at the time when I was selling my products out of jars, that it would be like in these bags, in a display box, like in master cases, on a pallet. Like, I could have never imagined it back then, but now it's there, and now I'm thinking to the next step, and I'm going to make 10,000 more mistakes before I get there, and I'm okay with it.
That's really big. To learn this food terminology is really tough. About lead time, about order lead schedules, deliveries, pallet, pack sizes, the lingos for every account. Every account has their own lingo. It's a lot to learn.
Definitely. And you can't go in knowing it. Like, there's just no way. You could read so many books, but honestly, you have to go through the steps and apply it to your business and apply it to your dream or your idea. Take it one step at a time. Reach out to people that have businesses. Ask questions. Like, that's what I would always say. Like, it's okay, and I just learned I'm in an amazing manufacturing place now, and I was like, oh, I'm going to have this order January 1st. And they're like, no, you're not going to have it until probably January 14th. And I was like, oh, okay, like those 2 weeks, you don't get product, still learning every day.
What about resources, to get this started? Did you have investors? Do you have friends and family, your own money? How much money does it take to get something like this started?
So initially when I started, I put in $5,000 for like the first 2 years. I was a hustler. I would go out there and I would just sell it. I would do demos. I would make sure people got to try it. And the cash flow coming in from sales is what really just fueled it. And we would do demos in like stores constantly. Those get expensive, but people would buy it, which means they would come back and buy some more, and they would come back some more. I tried to push sales if I could online somehow, get people's email addresses. You really just do everything you can to try to get direct to consumer, of course, because the margins are better. And then when it was time to rebrand, I came to a point in last November where I kind of felt like I hit a wall, where like it was like the next step needed to happen. And so I had to put in a little bit more money to hire a consultant to help me with it, to get a designer to design the packaging. So to this day, it's been self-funded, but I am actually at the exact point. It's funny that you asked, because the next step, I'm getting everything ready now to pitch to seed investors, and I'm exploring the idea of friends and family versus investors, but I might see if I could do both. We'll see.
It could be tough.
It's tough. It's definitely something that I don't know much about this stuff. I know food now, but I don't really necessarily know anything about funding. Well, now I do, because I asked a lot of questions, and I've met with people, and I've learned certain things. I'm not going to take over this conversation with things that I've learned about that, but I'm ready for it. Where it was a very, very scary place about 2 weeks ago, today I'm ready to take that next step.
OMNI Food Sales works with brands of all sizes. We work with brands that are traded on Wall Street. We work with regional brands. We deal with local entrepreneur startup brands, some of which went on Shark Tank and won deals there. We work with a handful. I've heard good stories and bad stories about working with angel investors that come in. Not to sway either way, but I've heard of all the big ones, the famous ones. You get a check, which is great, but there always seems to be like a control issue, a power issue, and who's got the direction of where it's going to go. It just seems like, I've heard both. It just sounds like if you could keep control yourself and do as much you can yourself, it's great, even if you have to grow slowly.
Right. So that's to this point, I've been growing pretty slowly. I am in a circle of other brands that I see that they have funding, obviously, because they're just the amount of marketing that they're doing. I could never do. Like, I reach out to every influencer on my own on Instagram and send product. I can't pay these influencers. I'm just hoping that they, and some of them really do, really like the product, that they'll talk about it. So when I think about an investor in BuckWHAT, I really think, well, if it's friends and family, they're obviously going to put all their trust into me. But if I'm thinking about an investor, I'm thinking about a partner, like someone that isn't just going to give me money, but might have the knowledge that I don't have, will definitely have the knowledge that I don't have, possibly resources that I don't have, because the ultimate goal is to grow this brand and to work together to do it. So yeah, it's really, you know, it's tough. Sometimes you have to make a decision which
that's what I'd watch out for. You know, a lot of these investors, they have this 10x rule where they'll invest in 10 different companies with the thought or expectation that 9 of them will fail. But they just hope that one of them hits a multiplier of 10 times what they are now. Right. So they kind of rolling the dice, hoping that one of them sticks. And like, okay, wow, that's how they play. Yeah. And that's what I've heard. So,
well, we'll see. I mean, I am looking for investors, so, but it has to be the right one. It's something like, you know, I think also along the way when I was picking people to work on certain projects, rebuilding my website or doing my Amazon or things like that, you just kind of have to, the thing about being an entrepreneur, and people might be like, that's ridiculous, it's a gut feeling half the time too. Like your gut tells you like, this is not a good opportunity. This is a great opportunity. Does it always work out that way? Does every gut feeling actually turn out into a great opportunity? Probably not, but you really do have to trust yourself. At the end of the day, you are the brand. It's your passion, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody else will feel it the way you do.
I mean, this brand and how you started it reminds me of Jessica Alba. Jessica Alba came out with, I think, The Kind or Honest.
Honest.
And it was based because her child had real health issues, concerns, so she could only give her child a certain thing.
Right.
And lo and behold, there were millions of people that all subscribed to her way of thinking.
Yep.
But she had a little star power, right? She had a few million followers on Instagram to get her message out there. Right. But I don't know, I would maybe think about taking this to some other well-known celebrity brand endorsers and come up with a partnership like that. I mean, that could be a way, there's no such thing as an overnight success, but if you get someone that has a few million followers that could start posting, hey, I use this, I make this, I take this with me when I'm on the go.
Just need like Kimmy Kardashian to take a bite out of it.
Someone like that.
We all have dreams. It's funny that you say that because I was recently listening to a podcast, and Mila Kunis, who is also Ukrainian. Yeah, also Ukrainian. I think she's from I think she's from Kiev or Odessa. I don't know. If you're listening to this, where are you from? And and she was talking about how much she actually grew up eating buckwheat. So, you know, my mind immediately goes to like, well, and that's what I'm actually planning to do today. Send her some samples, send her some products, see if she likes it, you know. You never know. But it would be nice. It would be great to get someone behind the brand that believes in the brand, not just...
I believe that's how you get active partners nowadays. Yeah. I just don't have a lot of faith in investors. I believe they're all about writing a check and then going on to their next endeavor. When you get someone that actively... People want authenticity now. Right. Instagram makes people authentic. Like The Rock. I follow The Rock on Instagram. He's got his Sunday sushi meals. Like, that's his cheat day.
Oh, really?
You could really see how people live now.
How many rolls does he eat? I'm just curious.
It's a whole man-the-sized table. It's enough to fill this table. It's humongous. It would be like three meals for me in one for him.
That's funny. That's great. Yeah.
But people crave authenticity, and there's an authentic story behind this.
Yeah.
You know, you have your kids, you want to give them the best ingredients. That's what this is.
Right. Well, it's funny because my kids, you know, I'm not a neurotic mom where like I don't let them have a lollipop or I don't let them have a cookie. But for the most part, I really try to do my very best. 2 reasons. I want them to be healthy, and then there's like a lot of mom guilt. So when they eat the noshes every day. My kids really like them, maybe because they grew up eating them, but they really do love them. And I feel so good because they're like eating something that's actually good for them. Where, you know, I started to find like my husband and I are on this like health kick lately, and we're, you know, watching, I don't know, fermented food kick. That's a whole other conversation. But like we're so aware of what we're eating, and like, you know, then you're like giving them like goldfish, not even if it's organic goldfish. It's goldfish, you know, there's like 1,000 ingredients in there. Right. So the goal is to really have a product that the whole family could have. It's great before or after a workout. And it's some kids, the cocoa and the kids think it's a cookie. And if you start them eating a certain way when they're young, like my son actually drinks a spirulina kale smoothie every morning because he started drinking it when he was able to have that food. And now, like I can't even finish mine because he's like taking it away from me. So the earlier you start your kids on healthy foods,
way to go. That's inspiring, and that's I mean, that's how you make change. It's how you bring about change. It's people like you that are actually doing it and saying, hey, stop, get away from the mass media and take all this because it's just told you need to have this.
Right.
And you're saying, hey, no, this is what you're going to have.
Yeah.
Packaging really pops, by the way. It does pass the eyeball test. When people walk through the shelves in the stores,
there's so much
you've got 2 seconds to make an impact. Yeah. You've got a solid color. You're saying what it is. So kudos to your consultant or yourself, marketing, whoever did. This is awesome. You mentioned Whole Foods. Yes. Was that one of your first customers?
So my very first store was Green Grape Provisions in Brooklyn, and then it was very slow. Like when you're on your own, I literally did this on my own. I didn't really have anyone doing sales or telling me what stores to go to, what stores not to go to. I just kind of like saw a healthy store or a gourmet store. I was like, let's see if they'll carry the product by simply calling and asking for a buyer. And then I happened to be, only about 4 months after I went to retail, I happened to be at an event where the local buyer from Whole Foods was at, and I got her contact. I reached out. I sent her samples. They happened to be opening the Whole Foods in Williamsburg, and they took me on in very different packaging. It was like a white stand-up pouch with a sticker. So that was really exciting. It was my first big grocery store, I guess.
So Whole Foods is known or making a reputation or making an effort to deal with local specialized brands, which is really smart because that's where the growth is coming from. I've read a lot of publications. General supermarket sales are flat to up 3%. The specialty department is up 18%. Oh, wow. So that's where the growth comes from. But what Whole Foods is still not taking over majority share from traditional retailers. So do you have any traditional big box supermarket stores on board, or that you're looking to get on board?
That I'm looking to get on board. So up until this past April, I had my relaunch, but I had some issues. Like I mentioned, you have to be ready to have mistakes and problems happen. So it's really a little bit over a month ago, that I'm in a really great place to be in big box stores and be ready. I have enough. My manufacturer is able to produce to that amount. I'm reaching out to all these stores, and I have a whole list. I'd like to be in Fairway. I'd like to be in Kings. I'd like to be in Well by Nature. There's a whole list of stores, and this is exactly what I'm doing now. I'm at a point where I'm looking for the right distributor. I'm looking for the right broker, for the right stores to be in. That, when you get really excited about your brand being in a store, you have to remember one thing. Getting into stores is just the beginning. You really need to make sure that your product moves. And what I've learned is I'm starting to know what stores and what placement it works at. And it might not be the store of your dreams. Like, it might not be the Whole Foods. It might not, there might be a random chain that you never even heard of that's the store. And having learned this in the last couple of years, exactly who my consumer is, it's helping me narrow down because I'm really not trying to explode. I'd like to grow narrow but deep and really create a following for the brand.
OMNI, we're in charge of about $100 million in sales annually across all of our principals, all their business. So we have a lot coming on here. My mentor was an old butcher by the name of Jimmy Aiello. He was the meat butcher for Sloan's, Red Apple, and Gristedes in Manhattan. He was in charge of about 100 stores. And he did that for a long time before he came to OMNI. And he broke me in. And he had famous sayings to me. And one of his sayings, and we would pioneer lines together, and I would say, Jimmy, we got the order. Look, we got the PO. He'd say, yeah, so what? That's nothing. He says, come back to me when you get the third order.
It's always the third,
I said, the third order? Why? He goes, the first order the buyer sends out on his own. Yeah. The second order they could send out on their own again. The third order is when everything sells through and now they're buying it because it actually sold. Yeah. So that's what I tell everyone at OMNI. When everyone says, Zach, I got the order. Zach, look. I said, no. Get excited after you have the third PO. That's when you know you have something that will stick.
Yep. And that's kind of what I'm basing off of, like what stores work and what stores don't. I still get upset when I get into a store and I'm like, it's not moving, it's not selling. Like I got into like a coffee chain that I really wanted to be in, but people weren't buying it there. It wasn't the store for it. And you just have to be okay with that. You have to be like, it's okay, because people are buying it somewhere else. But yeah, it's the third PO. That's the goal.
So I know we got in touch because a broker that Omni knows in Florida recommended us to you. That's how we got in touch. So are you doing business in Publix? Are you in
no,
Big Box
so they
down there?
actually, no, not yet. Hopefully one day. And this kind of brings me back to like the momtrepreneur world, which is now like a word, momtrepreneurs. I was put in touch with them through a fellow entrepreneur mom who has a cookie line, and she's like, these are some good brokers to reach out to. And when I reached out to them, he said that he was too busy, but said you should really reach out to Zak at Omni.
I'm glad he did. And you mentioned broker, and a lot of people in your shoes, I don't know if the connotation on your side is negative when it comes to broker, but from my experience, some people view broker as, necessary evil. So we've actually branded a new term, brand advocate.
Brand advocate,
because
that's great.
what we are, it really is different. We're someone that is building someone's brand and putting the strategy in place to build it, to get it in, not just today, but to build it 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years from now.
It's like an investor. You want everyone in your team to not just be there, not just be wearing the jersey, but actually participating in the game. Like,
for sure.
And if they can't play, at least they're rooting for you on the sidelines.
You want someone that's on the field, taking the shots with you, that's going out to the store openings on a Sunday when you don't have to be there, but they're going anyway because they want to see what the audience is going to be like.
Right.
You talked about product sampling earlier, that was successful for you.
Yes.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because Omni is always telling our brands, encouraging our brands to do more product sampling.
Yes.
And it is viewed as a cost by some, because it is expensive to get not just the cheapest person out there, but a passionate person, a passionate salesperson out there that's educated, that knows what makes this unique versus the competitors, that's familiar with the price points. What does this sell for? What's the shelf life? How does it come, etc. All the flavors. It takes time to train someone on that.
Yeah.
But what we find is the results are huge. I was at a demo yesterday. A ShopRite opened up in Cortland. It was a grand opening, and we had a demo going on one of our brands, and I saw it with my own eyes. Dozens of products being given out, trinkets, giveaways given out, and people demanding to the store personnel, where's this product? Give me a box. And I literally saw boxes being passed out. I mean, you can't, I wish I had a camera with me to film it to show all the other brands. It's worth it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely worth it. And demos are incredibly important, because you get a product into a store, but people don't necessarily know what it is. So people like to try things. That's kind of how I created my following in Whole Foods and other stores that I'm in. But also when it comes to demos, they're quite expensive. Like you said yourself, you could hire demo companies, and then they just put someone behind a table with your tablecloth, and does it sell? Doesn't it sell? It doesn't matter. So when I first started, I was doing the demos because I was doing everything. So Whole Foods, I was standing there doing demos. So I understood what it's like to do a demo. I understood what people need to hear, want to hear, how you get people to try a product. So now I have created my own demo team. It's easier done locally. I don't know what's going to happen when I expand, into different states, but I have kind of an idea what I might do there as well, where I've hired and trained people. I'm actually doing a training today, later on today, to train a new, I call them my brand ambassadors.
Yes, love it.
They stand behind the brand, and I always say there's always going to be more opportunity. If you love BuckWHAT, or I don't expect anyone to ever love it as much as I do or sell it the way that I do, but if they do even 50% if they have even 50% of that passion, it's good. So yeah, you get people to try it, and then comes back, and then eventually you get that third PO.
Absolutely. And that passion that you have, cherish it, hold it, put it in a safe, keep it close to you, never forget it, never let it loosen. And like you said, no one will have 100% of that, but if 50%, 25% of that, that's how successful brands, they are storytellers. The story gets told. Your ambassadors should all know how you started this, what farmer's market you went to, and who your first customer was. Yeah. And then they should all be multiplying that out to everyone else. We're all storytellers, and the better storytellers we are, the better salespeople we are.
It's true. Yep, I've created an actual manual for them. Where it's really weird to when I started this, I never knew how much it was about me until people were like, "Well, you should keep telling your story. You should keep telling your story." And I was like, "But isn't it just about the product?" And then apparently it's not. People want to know where it's coming from, and I could just say, like, this is my firstborn. I was pregnant with my daughter when I started the company, and I treat it like one of my kids, you know, maybe sometimes a little better, but.
People want to make informed decisions. That's why sampling is so important.
Yeah.
And by the way, we have a network of people too that do demo work for us too, product sampling. So we'd be happy to share that with you.
That would be great.
If you'd like, people that are nearby.
Yeah, it's always good to. That's a very, very important resource to have.
Yeah, and we're the same way. We only have people do product demos that pass our test.
Yeah.
That we would represent. Hey, you're going to go stand in front of our principal today.
Yeah.
So we only have people out there because they represent us. So we're very selective on who we have working with us. Sales-wise, what are your sales like now? Ballpark. You don't have to be exact. Ballpark.
So like I had said, I used to have a granola and I had a bar. So only as of April do I have just the nauseous, but I did have all those items. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I guess my sales for the year were around 100,000. Which isn't bad when you're considering the wholesale price of this little bag here. But my goals are much higher for the next year ahead.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's $100,000 more than a lot of people that haven't started with their brand.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. You're on your way. Sometimes getting started is the hardest part.
Yep. Yes. Definitely.
What's the goal? What's the dream?
So my goal for 2019 is to be in 500 stores, and then the revenue is calculated based on that. And then my goal for 2020 is to be in 1,000 stores. So I'm just planning to double it and keep going. And
that's a lot of stores.
And then 5 years, see what happens.
Are you ready for that kind of demand?
I'm not ready for 1,000 stores in 2019, but I'm hoping to be ready for 1,000 stores in 2020.
Awesome.
So you have to remember to take it one step at a time.
Well, that's real important too, because when you talk about investors and goals and sales and projections, we all want to put, this account is 300 stores, this account is 700 stores.
No,
if I nail this, it's all this. But when you get these orders, when you get to the buying office and you get a PO and they want the order next Tuesday, if you can't deliver it next Tuesday, you may piss that guy off so much that he may not come back.
Yeah, you got to know your lead times. And then you got to know your manufacturers. Like, you have to make sure that your manufacturer's on your side as well. I'm very lucky where I'm producing right now. They're on my side. They are really, like, you know, I ran out of one flavor much faster than I anticipated. And they got in there and they made it. They were really busy, but they're like, all right, she needs her nauseous. So they made it for me.
Awesome.
So hopefully it's one of those things where I always believe that you need to create a family. Like, you need, like, just like your family and just like your friends, you want to have people surround you that actually have your best interests in mind. And it's great to have people on your side and want to see you succeed.
Totally. Your story inspires me so much so that I said we need to stop. We need to put this on camera, which you usually don't ever do. But we had to do it. And the reason why is because a lot of people talk about America is dead. Entrepreneurship is dead. It's hard to create. It's hard for anyone. Where are the jobs? And this is a perfect example of someone taking their destiny into their own hands and creating hard dollars behind a passion that works. And to anyone out there that thinks that there's no opportunity for them, there's opportunity out for everyone out there. But who's hungry enough, who's got a stomach that's strong enough to deal with the ups and the downs and the distributor problems and all the headaches that come to create their own destiny. So I think what you've done is an example for others, and I hope other people learn from it, and it inspires other people to follow their dreams and to create their own brand and to think about OMNI Food Sales when you make that brand, because we work with the brands and we help, and we'll be happy to help how we can too.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Awesome.
So for the people out there, what's been the biggest highlight, the thing you love most about taking BuckWHAT to market?
In all honesty, the thing I love most about BuckWHAT is the fact that you just never know who you're going to meet, and you never know where your day's going to go. And this is like one of those really awesome, surprising things about it, that, you know, I was just coming in like a downpour, driving out here, not like getting lost like 3 times along the way, and then it turned out to be like the coolest morning ever. And those are really the things that I love so much. And I actually really do love meeting fellow entrepreneurs and sharing stories and helping each other out. I don't think we need to compete with each other. There's enough people out there that want to snack and eat, that if we help each other out, we could all grow. And if we're all competitive, then no one's going to grow.
Absolutely.
You can't keep stealing from people, and you need to really be one community and growing with a common mission, hopefully.
There's enough to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
We don't need everything. Just take a piece and grow from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's been the hardest part about launching this brand?
The hardest part is, well, when you cross a problem. And there was one moment where I really was like, I just think I need to be done, where we rebranded. And, you know, like I said, when I went from jars to packaging and learning about shelf life, I got it to the place where it was perfect and had lab testing and everything. And then when we relaunched, I went to my first co-packer, and things just did not go well. And I had just a really bad situation, and it was like breaking my heart, because this is not an idea that I had and someone else created. Like these are my recipes. I've created this, and to have someone mess that up when you're pretty far along could be a little bit of debilitating. And I almost gave up, but I didn't, because actually my husband's very supportive, and he's like, you can't. We have our license plates say BuckWHAT, so you just have to keep going.
Yeah, you don't want to change them.
No, it's really annoying to go to like the DMV and change your license plate. So
well, I like
committed.
it. I like it because it sounds like there is no plan B. It sounds like this is the
is
plan,
it.
and
this
that's it.
This is happening.
That's the way to do it.
Definitely.
A lot of people say, always have a plan B.
No.
I disagree. I don't like plan B, because when you have plan B, you're not totally devoted to what you're doing.
No, this is it. This is going to happen.
That's awesome.
It's happening. So.
Well, to everyone that's out there, keep an eye out for BuckWHAT. And if you're in a store and you see Leeann doing a product demo or selling the product, say hello.
Yeah.
And we'll reach out. And it was a pleasure. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
Of course. Awesome meeting you.
Nice to meet you.